Alex Kennedy, hoopshype.com at Alex Kennedy, NBA on Twitter. As the NBA coming down the stretch, about 20 games left, Alex says, but these 20 games are going to be very interesting for these teams because things just got shaken up with that injury. You look at the Warriors, are they still the clear favorite for you after this Durant injury and seeing them play for about a week or so without him?
Yeah, I think so. I think, this Warriors team is obviously extremely talented. We saw it last year. They obviously didn't have Kevin Durant last year. They had Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut and some other guys on that bench, but this is still a team that has Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I'm not too worried about this squad. I think Curry's going to have to step up. He's been shooting the ball poorly with Kevin Durant out. I think we need to see, more of the Curry that could take over games and look like the MVP Curry from last year. But I'm not worried about this Warriors team. I think every NBA, executive around the trade deadline was looking at Golden State and thinking, okay, we have to get through this team. The Durant injury, fortunately, isn't going to keep him out for the entire season. It seems like he could be back for the playoffs. So now, this is a chance for, the rest of the Warriors players to step up, get comfortable. And then in the playoffs, if Durant's back, I just can't see a team in the Western Conference beating this Golden State squad in a 7-game series. As well as Houston and San Antonio and some of these other teams have played, this team is just so good and they can beat you in so many ways on both ends of the floor. So I'm not too concerned about Golden State.
Alex, how many teams can challenge them?
I think I would say about 3. I think the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference 3. The San Antonio Spurs are obviously extremely talented. Kawhi Leonard is having a potential MVP caliber season. He guards the best player every single night, and his offense has really been improved this season. He's shooting the ball really well, scoring the ball much better than ever before. LaMarcus Aldridge is doing a really good job there. Greg Popovich is maybe the best coach in NBA history. He's been terrific, and they have the depth there. Houston is an interesting team just because if they get hot at the right time, they could be a scary team. If they go into a playoff series against a team like Golden State and you have James Harden, Ryan Anderson, Eric Gordon, Lou Williams, these guys are knocking down threes and their shots are falling, then, you never know what could happen. It kind of reminds me of that Orlando Magic team years ago when they had Rashard Lewis and Hedo Turkoglu, and, they were just shooting a ton of threes, and they took down Boston and Cleveland and teams that were better than them because they got hot at the right time. So that's really what Houston needs to do. And then the one other team that may seem crazy is the Utah Jazz. They're kind of my dark horse in the Western Conference, but I just love this Jazz team. I think they have talent at every position. I think they're extremely deep. Gordon Hayward's been terrific this year. He's obviously taken a huge step forward in his game. Rudy Gobert is one of the best centers in the NBA, maybe the best defensive center. And then you just go down the list of players they have outside of those guys: Derek Favors, George Hill, Dante Exum, Trey Lyles, Joe Johnson, Boris Diaw. I mean, the list goes on. And Quinn Snyder's a fantastic coach. So I think those are the 3 teams to watch in the Western Conference. And then obviously the Cleveland Cavaliers have their eyes on the Warriors as well. They're the team that, probably poses the biggest challenge if they're healthy.
Challenges to the Cavs, though, in the East. How many of these teams in the East legit chance? Washington, Toronto, Boston, or are you not worried if you're a Cavs fan?
Honestly, I'm not really worried. I think that Cleveland's going to be okay. Had Boston went out and made a big move at the trade deadline, I think that we'd be talking differently about the Celtics. I think, if they had been able to go at Jimmy Butler or Paul George, then all of a sudden, Cleveland, should have been worried because not only is Kevin Love down, but you have a Boston team that has Isaiah Thomas playing out of his mind, Al Horford playing well, and then potentially a third star and, some very good role players around them. But Boston didn't make a move. They held on to their picks. They're kind of playing the long game here. So that leaves, Washington, Toronto, and I think those teams are just a notch below Cleveland. I can't see them competing with Cleveland in a 7-game series. The best team, I guess, would be the Raptors just because of matchups. You have Kyle Lowry on Kyrie Irving. You have PJ Tucker now, who's been a terrific defender on the perimeter, matching up against LeBron James. You put Serge Ibaka down low, which makes things difficult for Cleveland's drivers and Kevin Love. I think Toronto did the best job of improving the roster at the deadline. And Washington, they've been playing great basketball lately. Don't get me wrong. They've been hot. Scott Brooks is, getting a ton out of this backcourt of John Wall and Bradley Beal. They made a number of moves at the deadline that improved their team. But I just still see Cleveland and then everyone else when I look at Eastern Conference.
Hey, Alex, do you think the Cavs should be worried about the number of minutes that LeBron plays and has played over the runs that he's made the last couple of years? I mean, the guy seems like he's in the finals every single year.
Yeah, they should be worried. I mean, fortunately, he hasn't had a serious injury. I'm not sure if he's superhuman or what it is, but he has not been injured. But at some point, it could happen. And I think you have to be cautious with him. I know fans get upset every single time he rests or sits out a game, but there's a reason for that. This is a guy that has played 49,000 minutes in his career, and that's just counting regular season and postseason. That's not counting his 3 different runs with the Olympic team. That's not counting practices, off-season work, things like that. If you look at his postseason numbers alone, he's played in 199 postseason games, and averaged 42 minutes per game over the course of his career in the playoffs. That's 2.5 more seasons added onto his career because of the playoff runs he's been on. He's been to 6 straight NBA finals. I mean, this is a guy that eventually that's going to catch up to him. He's been very fortunate because he does a great job of working out and, maintaining his body and playing the right way so that he doesn't, get injured and throw his body around. But at some point, he's 32 years old right now. At some point, we're going to see some kind of injury or some kind of breakdown. That's very unfortunate, and that's why I think people need to appreciate the greatness right now. Someone actually, I did a video on this recently, and someone actually pointed out that at this stage in his career, if you look at what Kobe Bryant was playing versus what LeBron James has played, Kobe actually had played 3,400 less minutes at this stage in his career than LeBron.
Wow.
And obviously we saw what happened down the stretch with Kobe, where, he was not the same player, a shell of himself. And I think part of it is you almost have to protect LeBron from himself. He's never going to take himself out of a game. He's never going to, sit himself out, and he'll want to play through injuries. So that's where if you're the Cavs, you have to be cautious and really have your, eye on the prize here and say, okay, it's a regular season game, or, we need you healthy for a championship series. LeBron, he's been fantastic, but I hate to jinx him, but, at some point you have to be worried about all those minutes and basketball miles on his body.
Talking with Alex Kennedy, hooptype.com. You mentioned Utah and a couple teams in the West. Who are a couple dark horse teams in the East?
I think Washington, like I said, they're still a notch below Cleveland, but they're very hot right now. They're playing very good basketball. John Wall doesn't get enough attention for what he has done this season. He's been fantastic on both ends of the floor. He's been not only scoring the ball, defending really well, but one of the best passers in the NBA. Bradley Beal has been healthy, and that's really big for them. Otto Porter Jr., he's really stepped up as a 3-and-D player. He's going to get a big contract this summer. Then you go out and add Brandon Jennings and other guys to that bench. So they're kind of gearing for a postseason run. So I do think Washington will make some noise. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Cleveland, but Washington is a team that's gearing up for a postseason run. And then it's kind of interesting. There's a few teams that are at the bottom of the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference that I'm kind of watching closely. The Milwaukee Bucks are kind of coming on lately. Giannis Antetokounmpo is obviously a superstar in the making. Chris Middleton has come back, and that's really helped them a lot. Jabari Parker went down with the injury, but they've had a number of guys step up, and they're playing pretty well. And then you have this Miami Heat team. That's just so crazy to me. They were a team that was struggling earlier in the year. Now they've gotten huge contributions from guys like Dion Waiters and Willie Reed and James Johnson, guys that, unless you're a diehard NBA fan, you probably have never even heard of Willie Reed and James Johnson. But they've had a number of role players step up. Eric Spoelstra is doing a great job there. So, and then obviously guys like Hassan Whiteside and Goran Dragic are obviously leading the way there too. So I'm kind of looking at those teams, and I'm curious to see what they can do and who sneaks into the playoffs. You're likely going to get swept by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round, but Miami has the best record in the NBA since January 15th. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They're playing great basketball right now.
Alex, in this area, we look at the tank standings, so I want to get from you.
Come close. Last night was perfect. Get there, get close, send to overtime. Oh, but they lost.
Right, and the Lakers somehow decided to win last night over Phoenix, which is kind of funny. Those two teams playing each other, both wanting to lose. The Lakers are the ones that win. But which bottom 5 team has the best chance to make the playoffs next season?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned take standings. I'm in Orlando, so the other night when Jimmy Butler played against the Magic, all the Magic fans were happy because they thought they were going to get the loss, and then Dwayne Wade was out, so they were upset. And it's the same exact thing's happening in Orlando. I think you have a lot of teams right now trying to tank and get a higher pick. If I had to pick one of those teams that will be a playoff team, I'd probably have to go honestly with the Lakers, and the main reason why is because I think they have the pieces to go out and improve their team the quickest. We all heard the Paul George rumors at the trade deadline, and I don't think that's going to go away. After the trade deadline passed, Paul George said that he was unhappy that he was mentioned in trade rumors. He didn't like the uncertainty, and there's still talk that he wants to go be a Laker. So if you're the Pacers, I think you have to be worried about that you're going to lose him for nothing in 2018. And it's very possible we see Paul George to LA trade talks resume again in the offseason. But if you're just talking about, teams that aren't going to make a big addition and, improve based on, the talent alone on the roster, Philly's certainly up there. I think Minnesota is a team that everyone's kind of eyeing.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can be healthy next year. Zach LaVine comes back healthy. And then, we'll see the next step in the progression of Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. And it's always hard, too, with Tom Thibodeau being there as for the first time as the head coach there. It's always easier that second year when, the guys know what to expect from you and there's continuity. So I think Philly and Minnesota are the two teams that I'm watching. But the Lakers, they could kind of leapfrog some of those teams if they're able to make a free agency addition or make a big trade for a guy like Paul George.
By the way, the worst 5 teams are Brooklyn, L.A., Phoenix, Philadelphia, Orlando. They are the 5 worst teams currently in the NBA. New Orleans is right there. Sacramento, New York, Minnesota, Dallas. They're all within about 2-3 wins from each other. Orlando's at 24. Dallas, you go up the list to Portland. I mean, they're all around 28. So there's a lot of teams right at the bottom there that will keep our tank eye on here on the Sports Bash. Alex Kennedy, hoopshype.com. We talk to him weekly on the NBA. We're getting close to the playoffs. Alex, looking forward to that, pal. We'll talk to you soon.